Hello again everyone and welcome back to another video from Old Frames Gaming. I'm your host BK and I want to say thank you to all of our new and returning viewers. Your support of the channel means more than we can possibly say. This is all for the love of the game and it's all about the gathering. In this video we're going to be taking a look at the round 4 match from our October meetup at Dragon's Den, and it showcases Chris K on his Blue-Green Madness deck versus Brian H on his Reanimator deck. Let's dive in and see what these competitors are playing. Chris is back again in this round with his Blue-Green Madness list. It certainly has the tools to get off to a quick start, and he's going to need it against the likes of Reanimator. His list does have some permission in Circular Logic, Daze, and Mana Leak, and he has Gush, Deep Analysis, Careful Study, and Frantic Search to find them. He's even playing Intuition, which can fill his graveyard with powerful flashback spells such as Roar the Worm for some super quick beats. His discard outlets in Wild Mongrel and Aquamoeba give him ways to cheat Basking Root Walla into play, or enable an early Arrogant Worm, or even land a Wonder in the graveyard just to give a whole team flying to evade blockers. Overall, he's got a multitude of angles to approach the matchup. His sideboard has some catch-all answers in Snap, Naturalize, and Waterfront Bouncer, and he's packing additional Roar the Worm just in case the two main deck ones aren't enough to get the job done. A Null can likely find an Animate Dead to answer, and Gilded Drake just might take an opposing beefy creature to end the game early. The alternative tools here certainly feel as though they can provide much needed support against a powerful opponent. Let's take a look at Brian's list. Brian's Reanimator deck is pretty solid. A cast of the usual suspects is found here, particularly Akroma Angel of Wrath, Phantom Neshoba, and Symbiotic Worm, which leaves behind an army when it leaves the battlefield. Ray of Dawnbringer is a neat card I've not personally seen in these lists very much, but it sure brings the heat, returning another creature to play every upkeep. He's got ways to both land an early threat as well as to disrupt his opponents between Cabal Therapy, Unmask, Careful Study, and all the reanimation effects. The sideboard has some neat choices as well, allowing him to effectively turn into an Oath of Druids deck. He has some additional ways to disrupt his opponents with Duress, or even control the battlefield with Powder Keg. Multani Marrow Sorcerer seems like an interesting inclusion given its Shroud ability. And the last card I'd like to point out here is Stronghold Gambit. It's a weird one, for sure, but I didn't really get much of a chance to talk with Brian about its purpose here. For those experts out there, please leave a comment below telling us what's going on with this weird card. Alright everybody, with deck text complete, let's head on down and join our competitors and see them battle this out in this final round. Alright, and as we join our players down at the tables for this round 4 matchup in our last Premodern event, these two players have resolved their mulligans, or will shortly. Looks like Brian is going to keep his full grip of 7, and Chris is going to be on 6. And Brian's going to be leading off. We're going to start on a land plus Lotus Petal. And here Brian is studying how he wants to approach this first turn. So we get a little bit of banter between the players while Brian is making up his mind here. And he's going to start off on Careful Study. So we're going to draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards, which is likely going to enable something. And as you can see here, Brian has picked up a Reanimate, which is going to be key. So now we're going to discard 2 cards, Symbiotic Worm, and Cabal Therapy. Both cards that have excellent play from the graveyard. Now Brian's going to sacrifice this Lotus Petal for 1 black mana and play Reanimate, bringing Symbiotic Worm onto the battlefield, much to Chris's dismay. So Brian's going to lose a little bit of life from this Reanimate, but he's got a 7/7 creature in play on turn 1 at the measly cost of 8 life. Chris playing with his hand face up at this point, knowing that it's unlikely he's going to find an answer for this thing in time. So Chris is going to go and play an island for the turn and tell Brian he can go ahead and go. So here comes Brian into the red zone for 7. Chris is going to go to 13. Brian finds a city of brass, and he's going to return that undiscovered paradise to his hand and say go. So Chris draws for the turn. He finds another island. Not really adding much help to the hand. He's going to pass back one more time. Brian's going to take a look at a new one off the top of his library. He's found another undiscovered paradise. He's going to come across for 7 more, which is going to send Chris down to 6. So he's got one more turn. So Chris takes a draw, and that's going to do it. We'll let these players sideboard, and we'll join them in game 2. All right. And game 2 is going to get underway here shortly as these players resolve their mulligans. It appears that Brian is going to start on 6 cards, and Chris is going to lead off with Island. And he's going to have that daze up and ready to go here in case there's any turn 1 shenanigans this time, it appears. So Brian likely going to play it a little bit safer. He opts to go with a gemstone mine to start off things here in this game 2. These players looking for some counters to represent the mine counters on this thing. So of course, with the glare here, it's difficult to tell what that is, but given that it costs 0, it's a lotus petal. And so Brian playing another card here. Hard to see again because of the glare. And again, we are working on a couple of things to eliminate this going forward. But I believe that this was a Cabal therapy. I don't know what the name was. Actually, no, it was not a Cabal therapy. It was a Putrid Imp. So Brian lands a discard enabler on turn 1. Chris does not find a turn 2 land and passes it right back to Brian. So it looks like Putrid Imp is going to find its way into the red zone and beat Chris down for 1, sending him to 19. So Brian being ultra cautious with his plays here, but he is going to go ahead and play another Careful Study. Hoping to draw into something good. And I did not happen to be able to see what he drew there, but it looks like he has decided to discard a Putrid Imp and a Phantom in the Shoba. And with that, he's going to pass the turn back to Chris. So Chris draws a fresh one. Looks like he's found his second land. And he is going to pass the turn back over to Brian, having not found anything valuable enough to play just yet. Likely holding up a handful of counter spells to try and prevent this thing from going off the rails. So Brian finds another land. He's going to use that last mine counter off Gemstone Mine. He's going to attempt to animate Dead, targeting Phantom the Shoba. Chris is going to let that resolve, and the Shoba is going to come into play, and it's going to get 7 counters. But it's due to Animate Dead's text, it is going to be -1, -0. So it's actually going to be a 6/7, which is still pretty good. So now Gemstone Mine is going to have to go to the graveyard here soon, but not before Putrid Imp crashes in for 1. Chris finds his third land of the game, and it looks like a Gilded Drake has landed on the battlefield. So he's going to be taking that Phantom to Shoba. They're just going to trade creatures here. It's a pretty good deal for Chris. I'd make that deal. I think at this point they have not figured out that Gemstone Mine is supposed to be in the graveyard, but either way, it's not adding any more mana. So Brian finds another underground river. He's going to take 1 damage off of that and play another Careful Study. Trying to draw himself out of this situation now. So he's going to take a look at a couple new cards off the top of his library. He's going to discard a Symbiotic Worm and a Ray of Dawnbringer. So two pretty good targets here. And he's going to come on over for 3 damage in the air, sending Chris to 15. Alright, so has Chris found any other answers that might help him here? He did find a 4th land, which is good. So he's going to add 2 blue to his mana pool, play an Aqua Amoeba. So that's going to give him a discard outlet, so now he can start enabling things like Basking Root Walla and Arrogant Worm. Maybe even discard a Wonder to give everything flying, which he's going to do now. So he's going to come across for 6 in the air, gain 6 life. Brian's going to take it and go to 13. So Chris is going to go up to 21, even though the die doesn't go that far. I think both players just agree that that's what it is. Here we go. He's keeping track now. So Brian untaps. He draws a new one. Looks like he's found a Reanimate and a Gemstone Mine, which he's going to go ahead and play. Alright, so here comes that Reanimate. Does Chris have an answer here? No, he's just going to let it happen. Maybe. Yep, Reanimate's going to get it into play. So Brian's going to go down to 4 life here. He passes the turn back to Chris. Looks like Chris has got a few cards there that might be helpful. A couple counter spells, maybe a Basking Root Walla. But this Dawnbringer is going to be problematic because it's going to bring back something every turn. And the next target's going to be that worm. Alright, so we're going to discard Basking Root Walla to Aqua Amoeba and go ahead and play it for its madness cost, which is 0. We'll take 1 point off of the Yavimaya Coast. And I'm not quite sure what he played there. It looks like it could be an Arrogant Worm, but I don't think he paid the right cost for it. So Ray of Dawnbringer resolves its trigger and brings Symbiotic Worm back into play on Brian's upkeep. So he's building a pretty good board state over there. So now he finds a swamp. Looks like there's some questions about some things here going on in the battlefield. He's going to pass the turn back to Chris. So no attacks this turn. believe that Chris just drew a Roar the Worm. Debating on how he wants to approach the rest of this turn. Oh, it was a wild mongrel. Couldn't tell from the glare. Alright, so Chris is going to send the whole team. Because Brian's got a few creatures, but he is only at 4 life, so just has to slip in 1 or 2 here and there. And all of his guys have flying at this point, due to that wonder being in the graveyard. So Brian's going to go and start pitching cards to Putrid Imp. So there's 1 blocker. Ray Dawnbringer is going to block the Aquamoeba. Gilded Drake on Wild Mongrel. And so Basking Root Wallow appears to be the only one that is going to come through. So now Chris is going to start discarding cards to the Wild Mongrel to make it a little bit larger, and he's going to play that Arrogant Worm off its madness cost for doing so. And he's going to discard a Daze to it as well, so it'll survive combat. Now we're resolving damage. Creatures are going to the graveyard. Likely talking about how this situation is going to affect Phantom Neshoba. It's going to lose a counter. Alright, we've decided that the board state is insurmountable, and we are going to go to Game 3. Stick around, we'll give these players an opportunity to sideboard, and we'll meet you in Game 3, everybody. Alright, and we join our players in Game 3, the final game of this round. Brian is going to be on the play, and he is going to opt to start on a Lotus Petal. And what appears to be a City of Brass. He's going to tap that and go to 19. And we find a Careful Study. So we're going to take a look at 2 new ones off the top of the library. And then we'll resolve our discards on that spell. Discarding a City of Brass. And 1 other card. Just trying to make up his mind which one it's going to be. Lotus Petal. Interesting. So now Chris knows the coast is clear. There are no giant monsters coming down on turn 1 for him. So he's got to be feeling pretty good about this particular game so far. So Brian's going to pass the turn back over to Chris. He's going to draw his card for the turn. He plays an island. And goes into a Careful Study of his own. Now he's having trouble deciding what to discard. Looks like he's going to go for a Cephalid Coliseum and a Forest. And he's going to pass the turn. So Brian's going to draw a new one. Looks like he's found possibly an Acroma Angel of Wrath. So if he can cheat that into play, that would be super great here. Going to take 1 more damage off that City of Brass. Looks like that might be a Putrid Imp. So that's going to give him a discard outlet to get that Acroma into the graveyard. And he's going to pass the turn to Chris. So Chris finds some unknown green card off the top. we're going to play Forest into Wild Mongrel. So Chris now has one of his enablers online, which is great, but Brian does too. Looks like Brian's hand this turn has not been nearly as quick as the last couple games have given him, but that's okay. This is still a deck that can come out of nowhere and just get you. I think that he was looking up the text on Days so that he was clear on what was going on with that card. So now we're going to pitch a Chroma to the Putrid Imp. And Brian thinking about coming across into the red zone here. Alright, so we're going to go to 17 and we're going to play Exhume. Chris is going to attempt to daze it, but Brian does have that Lotus Petal at his disposal, so he is going to go ahead and pay that 1. So Chroma's going to hit the battlefield, everybody. So I believe we have a 2/2 Imp and a 6/6 flying monster. So he's going to come across for 8. Chris is going to go to 12. I'm sorry, 7. Chris replays his island for the turn so far. And he passes the turn back. So it doesn't look like he's found a good answer for a Chroma just yet. Brian draws a card and quickly casts it aside. He's got to be wondering what's in Chris's hand at this point. So we're just coming across with a Chroma, which is going to meet a Snap. So Chris is going to untap 2 lands off that. Oh, they have corrected life totals. I was correct. He is at 12. Alright, so looks like Brian has found another Putrid Imp. Chris draws his card for the turn and plays a Yavimaya Coast. He's still debating on what he's going to do here. So ultimately he passes back to Brian, who's got 2 Putrid Imps on the battlefield and not much else. So now we're going to pitch a Chroma again to the Putrid Imp and attempt to animate dead. But now I'm not quite clear if this works or not, because I believe that the protection from black would make the animate dead fall off. Because I believe that's his only legal target here. So in response, Chris is going to go ahead and discard Arrogant Worm and Basking Rewala and go ahead and play them both. And he's going to attempt to daze just to tap Brian out. So we may have an illegal game state here. If you know for sure, if you're a judge, please let us know in the comments just so that we're clear going forward into the future. But at any rate, the game carries on. Chris goes down to 6. And that looks like it's going to do it. He knows that there's not much coming back from this, I guess, given the current state of things. But again, let us know if that's a legal play or not. I would be interested in the answer. My gut instinct tells me no, but I would love to hear from the crowd. Thank you for joining in and staying till the end of this video, for tuning in with us. We appreciate your continued support. If you like content like this, please consider a like and a subscribe. It helps expand our viewership and our audience and reach. If you're ever in the area of Western Kentucky, feel free to join us down at Dragon's Den for some Premodern or Legacy or Alice or some other format, whatever to your liking. Good group of people down there. If you're into old school Magic, we would encourage you to head on over to the Orb and take a look at what Joe Singer's got going on over there. He features all flavors of old school Magic on his channel. The commentary is unbeatable, way better than my own. Joe's a super guy, and we want to help him out as much as possible too. Again, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.